What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about our prospects' top problems and how we can solve them. Now, the reason that we're going to be talking about this stuff here today is because if we can be the perfect person to solve our prospects' problems and create an offer that's really easy to say yes to, we're going to have more likely of a chance to help these people get insurance, help put a little bit of money in our pocket, and have less no's when we do present those numbers. So we're just going to dive into it here. We're going to go over all of them, then I'll run through a couple different things to help out with each of these pieces. Number one is going to be trust, the cost of insurance, family members having to come out of pocket for the money to be able to pay for any kind of, whether it's mortgage protection, just term insurance for loss of income, final expenses, things like that. Understanding the product, not wanting to make a decision today, and then their perception of what they want or need and it not meeting reality. Right, so we'll just start down here with this one. We're talking about, maybe we're talking to Sally, and Sally thinks that she can qualify for a cheap insurance policy, low cost, I should say, something around, $25 a month because she saw some ad on TV and she wants $50,000, right? We have to be able to knock down her perception of what she's able to get, what she can qualify for what fits for her pocket. Now, if we can't meet that perception of what she believes she can get and what's actually available for her, we're going to be on two different pages when we present the numbers. There's going to be a price shock. She's not going to understand that that's not what's possible for her to get. So as we go down the conversation, I'm trying to get an idea of what she believes she can get in place for herself. So I'll ask some questions like, hey, were you looking around just to cover burial expenses? And likely if someone in that position wanted to leave more, they'd probably say, and to leave a little bit more for my family. I definitely want to cover those burial expenses, but I want to leave a little bit more as well. Right? So if they say that, I'm like, okay, how much were you thinking? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to leave? Have you seen any prices? Like, I want to know what they have seen and what they believe they can get. So if it's out of reality, if they can't get what they think they can get for their, Social Security income budget, and I'm going to ask questions to figure out what they're making. Hey, most people that I work with are sitting somewhere between $700 a month and $1,500 a month. Is that kind of where you sit as well in your Social Security income? Okay, most people that I work with are retired, and you're retired or on disability as well, I'm assuming. Okay, great. And were you on the higher or the lower end of that? Right? I'm just trying to get a ballpark idea of what they do make so I can kind of figure out what would be comfortable for most of the people in that situation. So if someone's making $700 a month, I don't want to get them a policy that's going to cost $200 a month. Number one, for them, I just don't think that would make a lot of sense for them financially. And number two, it's probably going to charge back at some point because that's a huge portion of what they make. So coming back to this, we just want to make sure that what they believe they can get is matching up with the reality of what they can actually get. So if someone thinks that they can get $15,000 of insurance, they're really just trying to cover their burial, but they think it's going to cost $10, I'm going to have to say some things to get them to understand that it's not just going to cost $10 before we go over the numbers. Now, hey, this stuff is state regulated. We want to make sure that we find a policy that does fit inside your budget. It does vary in price, but we'll look around to make sure that we find something that does fit for you. The last thing any of us want is to burn a hole in your pocket. Now, if they make an objection about, oh, I saw this online of, $10 a month. Hey, accidental insurance is great. We can get you accidental insurance, but really we want something that's going to pay out in all scenarios, not just accidents, right? Right? So I want to say some things, have some things ready to kind of have our perspectives meet so their perception is really going to meet the reality of what they can qualify for, what they can get, and that'll lead us into the cost, right? So people want to spend as less money as possible on their insurance for the most that they can get. Most of the time, that's really what they're looking for. Now, we want to make sure we're putting them in a good policy. We want to make sure we're getting them, living benefits if they can qualify for that, having some sort of double accidental in there as well. That's going to drive the value of the insurance up. It's going to make them want it more. It's going to cause them to want to stick with the policy that we're getting them more. Value is very, very important. Now, if we can increase the value of the policy, they're going to want and be willing to pay more for it. Now, if we can't justify the cost of the insurance, there's no way they're going to go forward. And one of the big things that hold most of the people back is that they just don't have a ton of money. And that's why they're looking around for these burial programs to begin with. And we're just using burial as an example because that's what I mainly sell. Now, burial programs, we're talking cremation might be $5,000, $10,000. Anything for burial could be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in coverage. And most of these people's families don't have that in their back pocket to be able to go out there and spend the money on to actually pay for, Susie's funeral. So they want to make sure that they're spending a low amount of money because they're most of the time on a month-to-month basis living on Social Security. Maybe they have some other money coming in, but they most of the time they don't have a ton of money, but they know that they need it. So they're just trying to make sure that they're not getting screwed over, that they're not paying somebody a ton of extra money they don't need to. And just making sure that we really are, the perfect person to solve their problems by being confident, by directing them, by educating them, by making sure that they understand what they're going through with. That'll give them enough resources and, stuff in their back pocket to go, all right, man, if this guy is telling me the truth, he is serious. He does, he gave me his national producer number. I trust this guy. He speaks really confidently, clearly. Seems like he's really on my side. And that's how we want them to judge us, because if we can do that, then we're the perfect person to solve their problems. It's a lot easier to say yes to. We can give them the courage and the confidence to go ahead and make that decision with us rather than with Bob, who's going to call them tomorrow or in 3 days, because all these people will get insurance. It's just a matter of, are they going to do it today with us? Right? So we just want to justify the cost of the insurance. We want to build up the value of the policy that we're selling, because the more value that we can build into it, the more that they're willing to pay for it. Now, with that being said, again, I don't want to give them something that they don't think that they can pay for, or give them something that doesn't make sense for them. So I'm going to ask some questions. Hey, were you looking to be cremated or buried? Cremated? Great. Do you have an idea of how much that costs? No matter what they say, we just come back to the perception versus reality thing here. No matter what they say, I'm going to agree with them. Because even if, the cremation costs $7,000, but I'm like, hey, it might cost 10. I don't want to tell them that they're wrong. I don't want to butt heads with them, number one. And number two, whatever they believe is what is truthful, right? Like, I am not going to be able to convince them that it costs $25,000 to get their whole cremation services done. And I just want to have it be their idea of what kind of policies we're looking at, right? So if I'm like, hey, you're looking to get cremated, how much does that cost? $7,000? Great. So maybe we'll look at 2 to 3 different options just to make sure we can find something that is comfortable and affordable and really does fit inside your budget. That way, you're making that decision and nobody knows your budget better than you. The last thing we want to do is put you in a tight spot, right? I don't know, something along the lines of that, just to get them to understand, like, hey, or even, hey, prices are increasing maybe in the 10, 15 years when that day does come. God forbid it's anytime soon. We're going to make sure that we have enough, even if it is down the road in the future, because this stuff does increase over time, like gas prices and all these different things at the grocery store that I'm sure that you've noticed. We're going to go ahead and lock in a little bit more just so you can have that when that day does come, and it is a little bit more expensive down the road, okay? Right, so I'm just going to build up the value. I'm going to build up, I'm going to agree with them. And if, we're trying to sell them a little bit more, maybe it is, going to cost $3,000 more down the road. I'm sure the cost of cremations and funerals has grown in the past, but the point is just that we want to agree with them because their perception is what reality is. If we disagree with them, if they believe that it's $20,000 to get a burial, okay, great, $20,000. That's what we usually see in your area as well. We just want to make sure we can at least get that covered. That way, moving forward, the family doesn't have to come out of pocket and pay for any of that stuff, right? I'm going to agree with them because their perception is what reality is. And the last thing we want to do is butt heads with these people because they know that they can just go get it from someone else. So we want to be the perfect person to solve their problems, make it their idea, make it their vision, their idea. Again, that's very, very important because if it's their idea, it's their decision, they're more willing to go through with it. Just like when we were kids, like nobody wanted to get told to go ahead and clean your room, right? Oh, you have to clean your room, it's dirty. We all probably knew that our room was dirty. Last thing any of us wanted to do was actually go clean it. But since we were told to do it, none of us wanted to go out there and actually do it. In school, I remember I had a problem with authority when I was younger and all this stuff. I didn't want to listen to teachers, but I knew that what they were saying was the right thing, but I just didn't want to do it because someone was telling me, hey, be quiet. No, I didn't want to be quiet, right? Like little things like that. We don't want to be told what to do. So I want it to be their idea. I want them to come to the conclusion about how much they need. And then, hey, man, we're going to look at 3 different options. If you want to leave a little bit extra, we'll have that opportunity as well. These would be 3 baseline numbers. We can go higher and we can go a little bit lower, whatever's most comfortable for you inside your budget. Something like that. I'm on your side. We're on the same team here, right? Not wanting to make a decision now. This is a big one. And most of the people that we speak with truly do not want to do anything today. They're just trying to put it off. But they know that they need it and they will get it at some point. So we want to be the perfect person to solve their problems, and we do that by being confident, being really clear with them, being able to direct them in the right way, educating them along the way, getting them in a policy that really does make sense for them, finding something that is customized and structured to them, right? Like I said, if they say $7,000, great, we can take a look at $7,000 in coverage. The good news is we can go a little bit higher if you want to leave a little bit extra money behind for Mary and Bob, right? Like I'm going to just be that perfect person to solve their problems. I'm going to give them the confidence and the courage to go ahead and make that decision. Lean on me when they're uncertain because I am certain. Hey, look, I need to think about it. I can completely understand that, but it isn't a matter of whether or not we're going to get the coverage, Joe. So we'll just go ahead and start you off with $10,000 in coverage. That way there's at least something in place for Jacqueline and the kids, and we can always come back and add on more, right? I'm going to be confident and clear when I'm saying these objections to them. I want them to know that it isn't a matter of whether or not they're going to get it. And this is one of the trial closes that I use to just kind of get people to start saying like, oh, I guess it isn't a matter of whether or not I'm going to get it. You're right. I'll say things like, hey, it isn't a matter of whether or not you're going to get the coverage, right? Okay, if it's not a matter of whether or not we're going to get it, it's probably just depending on which option makes the most sense for you, not only on a month-to-month basis, but for the family as well, right? What we're going to do is we're going to look at the top A-rated carriers here in the state, and these are going to give us the most living benefits and coverage for you. Now, these companies have been around over 100 years. They've never missed a payout claim, and they do pay out their claims 24 to 48 hours after the death claim gets submitted. Right now, I'm just giving them such a great reason to go forward. Hey, a lot of value. Hey, I'm speaking really clearly. This is a great opportunity for you to get coverage. I'm the perfect person to do business with. Moving forward, you won't have to worry about anything. You guys can contact me directly at my personal cell phone number rather than having to call any companies, wait on hold, talk to any robots. We can eliminate all of that. You guys, I'm not Jake from State Farm. I'm not a quote guy. We're going to go ahead and structure your policy here for you. It's not a matter of whether or not we're going to do it. We're just going to go ahead and do it. Even when I do get an objection, it's no big deal. We're just going to let that roll right off our back. We're going to continue on and help them get the coverage that they know that they need. Okay? Last one here, or I think we got trust as well. Trust is big. They just want to know that we're not out there to scam them. They just want to know that we're out there helping them get taken care of. And most of these people are a little bit older, so they're not used to doing everything online. I do all telesales. So I just want to be very clear with them. Again, very confident, just that perfect person to solve their problems. That'll build a lot of trust. I want to know what to say in these different situations, be able to answer their questions. And when they do object, I don't want to get combative. I want to let all that stuff, again, roll right off my back. When it does roll right off my back, they're going to trust us because we're not getting worked up. We're not being combative. There's not a whole lot of emotional swings on the call. And we're just going to, we're going to get it taken care of today. That's the attitude every single time. Family members coming out of pocket. This is a big one. They just want to protect the people that are around them ultimately. And one of the big issues for them is why they start looking around in the first place is really just that they're trying to make sure someone somewhere doesn't have to pay for something. They know that they don't have the money up front in the bank most of the time. So they're going to leverage the insurance policy to pay low monthly payments to be able to pay for that big lump sum payment when that day does come. They're thinking ahead and trying to take care of their family. Now, again, they're trying to put it off. They don't think that they need to do anything about it right this second sometimes, and that's okay. We're here to, push them to be able to make that decision with us and be the perfect person to solve their problems. But we really just want to make sure that they're aware that this is a big issue and that by putting them, their son or daughter, wife, husband, friend as a beneficiary, no one's going to have to pay for those out-of-pocket costs. And, I always ask early on in the conversation, hey, who's your beneficiary going to be on your policy? It's going to be Bob. All right, great. We'll go ahead and take Bob's name down and what's his middle initial and last name, just to make sure that we do enter it in correctly when we get to that point, right? Like, I'm going to just paint the picture of that's what we're doing. We want to make sure Bob doesn't have to pay for that stuff. And then, something that I just wanted to touch on is it's really important for us to understand what our prospects are dealing with from their perspective and the issues that they see. So then we can go ahead and pull up and, really put in place some solutions, because when we have an offer with everything taken care of for them, if we cover all these things and whatever else, you can come up with for your prospects that they deal with and that they struggle with and the problems that they have when they're on the phone with you or in person with you, if you can cover all that stuff and create solutions for all those things and make sure that those solutions are implemented during those conversations, we can create an offer that's really hard to say no to. And when it is customized, it is structured to them and what they're looking for, and it's their idea, we can create an offer that's really, really hard to say no to. So by being able to cover all of the problems that they have, creating solutions for those, being the perfect person to be there for them, walk them through that process, be there for them after that day, I'm going to check up on you guys. I don't want you guys to think this is a one-time deal. We're going to be in communication moving forward, and I really do want you guys to understand that this is my personal cell phone number. You guys can call, text me whenever you want. This is the same number that my mom calls and texts me on, so you never have to worry about not being able to get a hold of me. In fact, if you guys don't get a hold of me in the first 24 hours of reaching out, you guys can go ahead and call the company because I'm likely dead. You guys can go ahead and get a new insurance agent. You guys can get someone new to reach out to, and moving forward, you'll have somebody else, because if I'm not responding, that means that I'm gone. Right? I just want to really be there for them. So being able to, number one, solve all these problems and whatever problems you have. If you're in a different industry, if you're selling a different product, I challenge you to go ahead and write down all of the things that your prospects have as problems, and then come up with a list of solutions for those problems. If you can do that, again, we can create an offer that is really hard to say no to, as well as customizing and structuring that plan to make sense for them. It's going to be really, really hard to say no. And if we're on top of that, the icing on the cake, the cherry on top, is going to be being the perfect person to solve their problems. Confident, clear, we're going to be able to overcome their objections. Everything's no big deal. Let it roll right off the back. Boom, baby. We got a whole lot of sales, a whole lot of money, a whole lot of yeses, and a whole lot of families protected. So this is today's video. I hope it helps.